15 years later, the truth comes out. The clowns are discovered. What is most striking in this case is not the circus itself, but the outrageous clumsiness with which the state officials pull it off. Everything suggests that from the beginning. They expected the defendant to leave Georgia and the case not to go to trial.
Jail does not destroy dreams. On the contrary, we find the fertilizer to make them grow within it. It is not a defeat that excludes one from the battle for life. In prison, offended self-esteem increases the desire for compensation. And upon being reunited with freedom, you carry with you the book of knowledge acquired behind bars. Jail shapes character and accentuates personality. Nothing is more suitable for giving us the exact measure of our moral stature, our weaknesses, and our strengths. For some, it is rock, for others, a swamp. We stop working because of the rain. Everything indicates that the onion harvest is coming to an end. Some say goodbye until the next season. Kako goes to Ohio with his people. Serapio with his people to New Jersey. I have no choice but to rest. When the rain intensifies for several days, uninterruptedly, everything is paralyzed except the brain, which is activated with enough time to develop the most important of its functions. I have never taken for granted the theory that work sharpens the intellect. The poor man works more because he thinks less, and when he increases his activity in search of profit, his problems grow as if he were adding yeast.
Through 35 powerful chapters, Georgia Conspiracy unfolds the testimony of a Cuban de la Borra wrongfully accused and convicted in the spring of 2007 in the southern town of Lyons. As the author testifies, in his case those in charge of enforcing the law took care of blatantly violating it.
There is no prohibition without consequences. We Cubans can speak well of that. The question is, what was legal under the Cuban sky? To tell the truth, I only remember how legal it was to speak whatever you wanted in favor of the state. The madness had reached the extreme of prohibiting the registration of children with foreign names. People began to come up with strange names, mixtures of strange words, so that nowadays it looks like a madhouse. When newly arrived Cubans mention those they left behind in Cuba, I am stunned, and the reaction to the forbidden extended to all other facets of life. It was enough to ban a little herd singer, so that the next day he would become the vocalist of choice, or censoring a little read book so that everyone would be interested in reading it. I do not venture to explain the cause of the phenomenon, but what I am sure of is that any prohibition stimulates the consumption of what is prohibited. We only know a person when we have been close to him, lived with him, deciphered his degree of justice with those below and his sincerity with those above. I bet none of the Griffin's drunks, or the prostitutes who prowled the area would proceed in such a dastardly manner as Officer Mario Moser. Most of the time people like him suffer from mental disorders that no record reflects when they start out in life. They are the object of ridicule and humiliation from their environment, and from that moment on they are gripped by a repressed feeling of revenge towards others. At the end of the day, those who deserve it the least pay the price. I hate abuse. I have always considered it one of the worst human qualities. The abuser seeks merit at the expense of the misfortune of others. He tries to conquer it with the weakest, but does not dare with those who are at the same level. An outstanding detail of Officer Moser is his stupid face. As I separate from the defender, my mood is pessimistic. I regret having fallen into a trap and now I can't get out of it. Telling Gabe that I don't want his defense is not going to solve my problem, because I don't trust the judge either. A policeman who was not in charge of arresting me is claiming responsibility for the case, and I lack money, that is, the ability to do anything for myself. The right thing to do seems to be to run away, but it would be a cowardice that I can never forgive myself. Not mastering the official language also makes me vulnerable to racial hatred. I am on the eve of a staging in which I have been cast as a buffoon. I must admit that at first, I thought my defense counsel would develop a parody, in the style of those written by William Shakespeare. I thought I would be defending myself in a wrong way to favor the prosecution, but nothing like that happens. My so-called lawyer does not even pretend to be serious in the process. Practically, with his defense, there would have been no need for a prosecutor, with an ally like Gabe, who needs enemies. Any human being who makes an assertion, cop or not, and another comes along and contradicts him, will naturally try to prove that he is telling the truth. Can any fair-minded person justify why Shore does not? His defeated face contrasts with the impact of my half-hearted testimony, which prosecutor, judge and defense counsel are forced to obstruct to preserve the inspector's lie. Judge Kathy S. Palmer has the legal obligation to stop the process and demand evidence that exists in abundance and is being hidden by the prosecution. I accuse Judge Kathy S. Palmer of the violation committed against me, of having taken the side of those who accuse me and, with her conduct, have propitiated the crime. I accuse her of conducting a process full of irregularities and inconsistencies outside the law, of having denied me the legitimate right to testify without coercion. I accuse Palmer of acting under the disturbance of racial hatred, far from any logical reasoning. Surely this lady must never pay for flouting the law she swore to uphold. I only want to fulfill my moral obligation to denounce the crime, of which I am a victim. The trial is an unforeseen event that they arrive at, and then cannot walk away from. They have no alternative but to align themselves in a fraudulent process. Had I been able to afford a lawyer, the prosecution would not have had the shamelessness to show up in court